Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Integration Chronicles. TAP Integration is on a mission to simplify psychedelic integration by providing accessible and actionable tools for individuals at all stages of transformation. And my favorite part is that we are here to empower facilitators to thrive and amplify their gifts. Today, I am so excited to present Mary Olivar, who is the co-producer of this incredible event that we do together called ACT. We do a South by Southwest fundraiser every year for the Center for Shamanic Education. She is the executive director of the center, and we love supporting them every year through this big fundraiser. We also did a conference this year to support facilitators, and we just have a lot of awesome projects in the work. I will let Mary explain that more, but without further ado, welcome Mary to the Integration Chronicles.
Hi, Olivia. It's always good to catch up with you and to collaborate with you.
Yes. So today or this weekend, we are collaborating with the Solar Punk Summit. Mary has some awesome presentations that she's going to do today, and her presentation might actually weave into some of the questions that we have. But first, I want us to rewind the tape. Looking back, what were some pivotal moments that led you to facilitation work? And what was life like before you took that leap? I actually don't know if I know the answer to this question.
I think it's an answer that's always evolving. Our story of our past is something that's, constantly sort of changing on depending on sometimes what day it is or what moment we're looking back. And it's an interesting question because I feel like there's a lot of people I've met in my communities, in our communities that, will say like, when was your Kundalini awakening? When was your moment? And I kind of feel like I've always been a weirdo. So if anything, rather than like a stop point, revelatory moment, it was in my path of exploration, of discovery, of being really clarifying and giving language to my prayer, like my prayer for life, for how to show up, how to make the world a better place, how to be an instrument for God, for spirit, to bring forth more harmony, more understanding, connection, love. And often, yes, that work has been inside myself to create more harmony, to bring in more softness, more kindness, more grace, and to show up as an embodiment of those prayers that I'm seeking to share and espouse. I feel really grateful that my first ceremonial journey was with teachers who had a lot of tools. So it wasn't just about the plant, it wasn't just about the ceremony. It was part of their larger prayer, part of their connection to both indigenous communities, to their own purpose work, to community, to service, and also helping expose me and introduce me to a lot of the tools that I now work with on a daily basis and that I also share with others. So it's hard to pick one moment, but I definitely will, in my gratitude, in my prayer, look to that first ceremonial experience and then the continuing relationship with that master plant teacher is something that has set me on my path now. But I've always been fortunate in that my work has been mission driven and usually, actually always with plants. I worked for years in the natural foods industry, most notably with Whole Foods Market as the healthy eating coordinator for the company. So I've always been a plant pusher. I've always believed that the earth is our source of healing, support, wisdom, joy, alignment, and just good medicine across the board. Thinking of medicine, like what does that mean when I use that term? It's meaning, to me, something that makes us whole, something that helps us to remember, that returns us to like our blueprint of perfection.
Mm, beautiful. So, and just for our listeners and our readers, it's Spirit Month. So every month we focus on either mind, body, heart, and spirit. And obviously that's why I chose Mary for Spirit Month. It sounds like you've been really connected to spirit for most of your life. I love that you work with the power of prayer. I feel like that's something I have been really leaning into hard lately, and even doing Elizabeth Gilbert's two-way prayer, where I'll journal out a sort of prayer and then listen for a response from spirit in return. So it sounds like you being connected to spirit, to prayer, has sort of charted out this path that you've then just said yes to. I am curious what what caused the shift from being in the natural food sector, whole foods, working with plants, to then saying yes to your first ceremony? What was the invitation there? And did you decide that you wanted to sort of facilitate that work before or after the ceremony?
Um, Definitely after, and something that's taken me many years to, with a lot of reverence and a lot of smaller steps to step into. Because I do have tremendous reverence for the altered states, for the plants, powerful, powerful teachers. So, and there's a couple questions in there, so I'm gonna try to answer them all. But in terms of stepping out of the work with Whole Foods, part of that was natural because of, I was very lucky to be in kind of the heyday of mission-driven projects in Whole Foods. So, running a program that was very much related and driven to the core value of creating a healthier world. And so, being in a place of education, being in a place of collaborating with product teams, with product suppliers, and to change the way, like we were talking about no oils before anyone talked about seed oils. People would look at me like I was absolutely nuts if I was like, yeah, this is something based with no oils. We're using whole foods, we're using unprocessed foods, and how do we even do that? And it's actually much more mainstream, but we were talking about this 15 plus years ago. So but as Whole Foods, changed their direction, got ready for the Amazon acquisition, they started to pull back from those programs that were more purely mission driven, stepping more towards more conventional practices business wise. Which sometimes happens. And at that time is around 2013. I was very curious what was happening in the cannabis space, also an early time there. So I did some work in that space, both as an advocate here in Texas, as an advisor for companies, and also as an investor. Very, very ambitious as we were in that time of like how cannabis was going to save, so many things. And then, in a parallel area of my life, stepping more into the learning of ceremony and of shamanic practices. And shamanic has become a really big word, but I use it in terms of referring to nature-based spirituality, and also to that thread, that lineage of nature-based spirituality that indigenous people are holding. I believe we all come from shamanically practicing people. All of humanity comes from people who said hello to the sun, who listened and communicated with the birds, who were grateful for the waters. And these were not only parts of our life collectively, but they also informed us. They taught us a lot, and we were in good communication with them. So a lot of the work that I've learned and the work that I share with people in my personal practice, of doing spiritual mentorship and teaching people how to connect with allies, is helping us remember and return to a way that is very natural to our nervous systems, to our mind patterns, to things that are deeply ingrained in our physiology and in our DNA and in our spirit patterns too. Um, so I think that's some of the answers there. Yeah.
Beautiful. What a beautiful lineage too. And I know that you've worked with plant medicines like peyote as well. I feel like that's a little bit less commonly worked with, at least from the people I've spoken with. And I wonder if you could share some wisdom that you've taken from that plant. Because for those listening and reading, Mary works with the Center for Shamanic Education and indigenous art, that they create and weave these beautiful tapestries. And in so many of the tapestries, they weave in peyote. So I know that there's a lot of wisdom and work that's done with that, and the work that you're doing. And I'd love to know how you would describe the medicine of
Yeah.
peyote.
I'd love to speak more, yeah, from the lens of the communities that we work with, because as I understand it, because their relationship is deep, and also speak a little bit to the art as a way to get there. So the one of the ways that we help generate funds into these communities, and I'll also preface this by saying the Center for Shamanic Education Exchange, our mission is to support the perpetuation of indigenous spiritual practices, particularly in their own communities. So it's a non-extractive model. It's also non-penetrative, where we're not going into communities, we're not boots on the ground. Essentially, we are supporting indigenous-led projects and initiatives. They're also indigenous conceived, that in their own communities, that are programs in their own communities that involve experiential learning, elder wisdom transmission, ritual, ceremony, and a variety of other things that are necessary for them to be in flourishing, not just sustaining, not just perpetuating, but flourishing their living lineages and their spiritual practices. So some of the communities that we work with, the Shipibo-Conibo, are the folks in the Ucayali River Basin in Peru. So it's a feeder of the Amazon, and we work with two different Shipibo-Conibo communities. They're supporting youth-focused projects that help them be in deep communion with the plants, doing traditional dietas in the way of their grandmother and grandfather, and the way of their grandmother and grandfather. So being in deep relationship. And they embroider and weave these incredibly beautiful cana cloths. Sometimes they're called telas. Tela means cloth in Spanish. So they include the medicine, the woven medicine, and the visual vibration of these songs, of these plants. And they're considered healing to look at, to receive with the eyes as good medicine. And sometimes it can be as potent as receiving the plant or the blessing itself. So those communities are working with a huge, tremendous number of plants in the jungle. They're also working very prominently with ayahuasca as one of their primary master plant teachers. And then a separate lineage that we have a longstanding relationship with is the Wixárika Huichol people of Mexico. So they're native to central Mexico, but they're people of pilgrimage, and they're holding possibly the oldest peyote lineage. And peyote in the archaeological record is found to go back 5,000 years plus. So it is a very long-standing, some would argue that it's much older than that, but long-standing relationship with peoples in this area, so much so that many of those communities do not live near the peyote gardens in Mexico, Wixárika, but they will pilgrimage there. So we were just part of a larger initiative to bring protection both to the pilgrimage sites as well as to Wixárika, the peyote gardens. So that was our process, our particular piece of that was to support the travel and the inclusion of the Wixárika Marakames. So there's their shamans, their spiritual leaders in this movement to bring UNESCO World Heritage status to the peyote gardens, to Wixárika, and to the pilgrimage site. So that was a tremendous win for that area, because it's under threat from agricultural and mining operations as well as other pieces, because peyote is a very delicate and endangered plants. So that's been a piece of it. But specifically talking about, about peyote, it's something that people, there's whispers about, there's a lot of interest, but as I mentioned, it is something that is highly threatened and endangered. And many native populations who, is part of their lineage and their practice, both the Wixárika, other native peoples in Mexico, as well as peoples in the Native American church here in the US, feel that there's not sufficient access to it. So that's one of the main things I really want people to know about peyote, is that while it is a grandfather-wise teacher, it's something that should be approached with a lot of reverence and a lot of curiosity about who are keeping it, who are sharing it, and what their relationship is, not only to the plant, but to the communities in the land. In terms of people who are curious about peyote, I think, before one ever ingests, or even if one doesn't ingest, you can still be in good relationship and in connection with a plant through prayer, through asking, through coming as you would to a sacred teacher, to an elder, and to express, like, I'm really curious about you. I've heard you are powerful. I hear you have wisdom, and I'd love to get to know you better. And one way to start that would be to perhaps be in awareness, do some research, get involved with the organizations who are perhaps moving towards peyote conservation methods. Get involved with our organization that's including, reciprocity to those communities, and even just in support of those communities who, the indigenous people who have been in the place of protection. And it's always good to ask questions. Where does it come from? What is your relationship? What is your lineage? But particularly for something that is as multifaceted and political and endangered, such as peyote. You can also, look at some of the art we have, the peyote art, which is made with a lot of prayers and good relationship. That's another way to connect it with it and bring it to your house.
Beautiful. Yeah, so I think you raise a really good point, which is that we don't always have to go sit with the medicine to learn from them. Actually, I think that there's so many other ways to explore learning from the medicine, like praying and just asking to connect without actually having to ingest it. I really love that approach. I think it's really beautiful. I think that can be done with other forms of plant medicine too. I'm curious, like, why would you approach peyote? What would you be potentially wanting to learn or receive? What is one of its teachings that maybe you have learned? If someone was going through something in particular or searching for something, what might those things be?
Um, I honestly would rather not start to say like what the medicine is, and I think it's for people in their own inquiry and their own relationship too. I will say that the Wixárika people have a very powerful relationship with fire and with the sun, and peyote is an aspect of that relationship. But I really want to be in the, reiteration of it being, rather than holding it up as a beautiful teacher, which he is, be in the encouragement for people to start with being in curiosity about right relationship. Um, yeah, before putting out a shiny thing that should step towards. Um, yeah, if that's okay.
Of course. So, how could we use those tapestries and the art for integration?
Hmm. Well, they're beautiful, like mandala style pieces, many of them. And it's one way to, particularly, the Shipibo pieces have many, many plants woven into them. The Wixárika pieces have many strong representations of the sun, of peyote, of other allies. So a visual meditation would be one, but they also serve as a reminder. So we, many people are familiar with the practice of having an altar. And an altar is both to give a space of reverence, but also to welcome what is on your altar into your house, to give it a special seat in the landscape of your house, so to speak. So art can be the same way, and it's a way to remind us and to bring into presence these allies, these helpers, to connect with it every day. So I have a beautiful piece of a Wixárika yarn painting here, and it has the sun and snakes and hummingbirds and tobacco and peyote and flowers, and these are all things that are in my field that I see every day, that I see multiple times a day. And it's also a beautiful practice, is particularly when you see these pieces, maybe for the first time, to stop and say hello, to be in reminder. Because for me, integration isn't as much about, there's a lot of practices, a lot of beautiful things you offer, a lot of doing, but it's also how do we bring these vibrations, these relationships into the container of our lives? How do we bring it in a way that is natural and part of our daily practice? And that can be something like saying, hello to your water each morning and thanking for it. It can be something like looking up and seeing a beautiful Shipibo tela and honoring ayahuasca, honoring the plants that it might be bringing into your life. So it's a way to surround yourself with the beauty and the visual vibration of the medicines. I call it like receiving medicine through the orifice of the eyes. So it's an opening, it's a reminder, and it's reinforcing that connection, particularly when you take a moment to connect with reverence and with gratitude.
That is incredible. So you've worked with quite a few different tools, and I'm curious, what is, if you had to name a favorite, what would be your favorite integration tool?
Um, Laying on the ground, laying on the earth. And it's something that I will often recommend to the clients that I work with and the practice of spiritual mentorship, of deepening into allies. The earth, we talk a lot about the earth. We talk about, protecting her. We talk about our relationship with her as humans, but we can bring it into simple but profound practices of saying hello to our bodies. Our bodies are earthlings, they're part of the earth. How we are in relationship with our bodies is representative of how we are in relationship with the earth. But one of my favorite simple practices that I'll recommend frequently is to go lie down on the earth. Find a place that's, maybe you can put a blanket down, you can be wearing clothes, it's okay. It doesn't have to be flesh to earth, be comfortable. But it's really, really nice to lay on your back on the earth, but I like even more laying on your belly on the earth and just putting everything down. Really working with gravity as an ally and letting your belly button connect to the earth like the umbilicus and feeling the nice receiving being held fully and breathing out and really letting go. And if you wanted to take it a step further, you can start to process, start to tell the earth whatever you're holding, like whatever's in your mind, whatever's in your heart, whatever's heavy. And she is a master composter. There's not much that she can't break down over time. And like the trees, I mean, giving leaves, they get broken down in a quiet season, and those turn into nutrients for the next growth cycle. So you can be in that process too. You can let go of whatever is burdening you. Tell it to her. There's nothing you can tell the earth in that moment that she's going to judge you for. There's nothing she's going to kick you off for. She's still just going to hold you with constancy and with love. And then perhaps when you feel complete with sharing whatever's in your heart, there might be tears there. Start to tell her your dreams. Start to tell her what you want to bring nourishment into, what you would like to be supported and fertilized for a season of growth, to maybe start inviting in the prayers of your heart you haven't even whispered out loud yet. And this can be, what I'm describing is a big practice, but that can also just be as simple as just breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in support and love, breathing out fear. And doing that practice while you're held by the earth is just beautiful and powerful and helps us remember too that we are not separate. We are not alone. We're always supported. I mean, we're always supported by the earth. It's rare that we escape it. Even in an airplane, we're going to come back down. So just reminding and letting our bodies really receive the unconditional, consistent, generous support that's always here for us.
That is such a powerful practice. And I really love how all of these weave together, the art, the visual art, looking at it on a daily basis, connecting through it with the eyes. And then when there's space, going physically and connecting with the earth, but constantly being in that right relationship with it by connecting through it in these different ways throughout the day, in your life, and how grounding that can be, and just keep you in the gratitude and appreciation for the earth. That's so beautiful. So I know that you do some one-on-one work. You have song circles, you do tobacco blessings and prayers, and you go to homes, and you did this for me. You came to my house and did a whole blessing for my home, which it felt so different afterwards. And so I'm curious, if you were to offer an exclusive promo to our TAP members, readers, and listeners, what would that sound like, and what can they expect to gain from you?
Absolutely.
For
Thank you
working
for
with you.
asking. So yes, I'll share a little bit about what I do and then also what's available for folks who have listened to this and for TAP members. So I do, honestly, the majority of the work I do is remote. I do a lot of remote work on the phone, sometimes on the video, but usually just in audio where we both do some spiritual mentorship, talk about what's going on in the person's life, and then also do a shamanic clearing and energy work using song is a big method that I use. And through the songs, I'm able to see what allies are showing up, which I know sounds a little esoteric, but it is. I have good relationships with different allies like the earth, like different birds, like different plants. And through the songs, I'm able to feel into what ally is showing up for that person. And there's tremendous teachers for us in nature. For example, if a tree spirit showed up, it would really help reinforce some of the things I talked about with the earth, but also very much about balance, about timing, about perspective, about grounding, about also reaching, being grounded and expanded. So those would be some of the elements that we might discuss, some of the qualities that we might discuss, how to integrate that medicine of the tree more, how to look to the wisdom of the tree and be in better connection to that through whatever is being navigated. But every ally, every animal, every element is showing up with different kinds of wisdoms that they're whispering to us through the natural world. So I help people to connect with the natural world, to start to listen to that, and I also share some of the insights that I receive in those one-on-one sessions. And I'm glad you mentioned the house clearings. Yeah, house clearings and blessings for land. Also is a beautiful way to reset the energy on a property. Often when people are moving into a new place, that's something that's a little harder to do remote. I typically do those in person, but remote is possible as well. But it's a beautiful way to clear the energy in a space, to honor the land, to build a relationship with the land, and to set the vibration in one's home, in one's office that's in resonance with your own prayers and your happiness. So we do offerings to the land as well as a tidying up of the energy. I also share ways that people continue to do that work of energetic hygiene on their own. And then I do offer in-person song circles in Austin. I also have a song class that I do called Your Sacred Voice, which I'm overdue for offering. I've got a lot of demands for it right now, but it's something I've already taught 6 times on working with the elements, working with the directions, working with allies to open up the voice and to get yourself in a place where you can channel song, where you can be that comfortable, where you can allow spirit to come through you. And it's a way to really uplift your energy and bring a lot of joy into your life, regardless of if you think you can sing. I believe that we've been indoctrinated into this idea that only singers can sing, in the same way that we've been attempted to be doctrinated into the idea that only priests can pray, only priests can talk to God. Like, singing is our natural birthright, it's part of our joy, so it's something I love to help people do. And then, so I'm happy to offer a 20% discount to anyone who is interested and is receiving this, and I'll share the code with you, Olivia, for you to share. And then I also encourage people just to get in touch with me. As Olivia mentioned, we do some really incredible fundraisers, especially over South by Southwest for the Center for Shamanic Education. But we also do other gatherings here in Austin, whether it's like meeting up at a swimming hole, doing song circles. Right now, there's a beautiful art exhibit that's happening with the art that we were talking about earlier, as well as some art from the Kogi Kagaba people of Colombia that was gifted to us. And that's up through November 3rd, which I know is soon, in Austin, but there'll be more art shows as well. So just track me down, get on the list, and show up. We really love building community too. It's one of a shared value that both Olivia and I have, and it's been a delight to create that in fun and unexpected ways.
Yes, absolutely. I will have a link to all of the things that she mentioned in the email and in the show notes on YouTube. Um, this interview has been chock full of so many beautiful integration tools. And like Mary mentioned, action and application is a big part of integration because you have to actually take the step to communicate to the water, to go look at the art. There's movement in all of that that requires intentionality. And there's a big part of just being as well. But having more tools to continue on this path of integration, which is really just a way of life, is what's going to keep you connected to self, to nature, to source, to others. And so the more tools you have that can resonate with you, the better. So thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for your integrity and the way that you hold the medicine in right relationship. I really appreciate and admire that. And for everybody else, if you would like to get in touch with her, we will have those notes in there. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful day.
Thank you, Olivia.